We recording?
Yes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to KHANTENT!
I'm Diginay, this is Best Guy Ever,
Hello.
and this is Vic, and we just watched the Goblin Slayer movie, Goblin Crown.
Yes.
Yes. And it was like...
it was like a 60-minute episode.
Yeah.
It felt very movie.
I guess a mini arc or just a long episode.
Yeah.
Would be most accurate.
And I know that I looked it up, there's a chapter of the light novel called Goblin's Crown, and this is also called Goblin's Crown. I do not know if this is an adaptation of that story. As far as I got in the manga, this didn't happen yet, so I don't know if this is actually an adaptation or not. Seems like it might be. I don't know, you'd feel like they'd say this is an adaptation on the wiki page or whatever. But, so I don't know if it was an adaptation or not. It sure felt like a TV original story where they, like, mostly get what Goblin Slayer's about. And, you know, to be fair, by the end of the thing, I was pretty satisfied on, like, all my checklist of Goblin Slayer things. But something's felt a little bit off here and there. But we'll get into all that. Mostly... You know, it was interesting. So there's a 30-minute recap of like the priestess's story at the beginning of this thing, and that was fine. That was actually useful because I hadn't finished the series. I watched I think 8 episodes and was like, I've read the manga. I'll come back to this some other time. I don't know. You guys both, I don't think, finished it. If I
watched
correctly.
one episode.
Yeah.
I didn't even finish the first episode of the anime.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I am a fan, and I have a video of Goblin Slayer talking about this show that you could see somewhere. I'm sure there'll be a link one of these places. So this is a new story. This happens at the very end of the anime, apparently. They get a letter that's like, Goblin Slayer, we need you for an urgent mission. Come save us in Shadow Moses. They need you to rescue the president. And so we pick up from there, having gone on a quest to the snowy northern wilderness, where they go to rescue a girl whose parents are rich and can afford to hire people to come save her. So that's our story. We're following. It's just another chapter in the life of Goblin Slayer on his quest to kill all goblins. Yeah. What'd you think? What'd you think?
So like the individual plot of this movie is like, you got this girl who had previously gone on like a quest with an adventuring party. They all got killed. She got captured.
Just like
raped,
episode 1, kind of.
Branded. Yeah. And then Goblin Slayer and his crew show up, find out the situation, use her in as a... They have her join the team so they can go to the big castle that she was trapped in and fucking slay all the goblins who were there. That's pretty much it. That's the movie.
Yeah,
a lot of goblins die as we were watching the team tear through a little horde of goblins at the start of the movie. But so like, okay, you as a Goblin Slayer fan, how would you describe the appeal of Goblin Slayer?
Well, okay, because I talked about this at more length in my old WeAgwa episode about it, but there's a couple layers. The first visceral level that everybody loves is that it's like D&D world made into anime. And if you know things about D&D, I played D&D for many years, so I'm well acquainted with it. It's just an anime about those character archetypes. Notably, no character has an actual name in Goblin Slayer except for Orcbolg, but then again, he's called Goblin Slayer. Everyone is just their archetype. Whether the girl is just called Elf. The priest girl is just called priest. There are no names. The guild girl is called guild girl. At no point, even like the girl that joins the party in this, at no point is her name mentioned, which is even weirder because she doesn't even have like a title. Yeah. What is she? Victim? Victim. I was thinking of her as victim, so I'm going to refer to her as that for this. But maybe like noble girl, noble daughter. Anyway, the main attraction of Goblin Slayer is seeing like D&D mechanics being exercised and utilized in an anime setting in a far more like efficient and sort of realistic way. And sometimes things get a little bit crazy, but always operating within the boundaries of what you would expect. And like if you've played a lot of D&D, which I have, you know that you often try to think creatively about how to handle situations. It's not always a good idea to actually just rush in and, you know, if there's like 10 goblins in an area in a cave and you've got your squad of like 5 people in your D&D crew, to actually rush in there one-on-one. You'll be like, oh no, I have 1 square foot of 5 foot distance. I can't use my polearm, which takes up 2 squares on my little chart. I know I can't. It's just those kind of rules applied to an anime. Very satisfying. And the second visceral one that you kind of have to immerse yourself more to get into, that this doesn't really get into, it's talked about once or twice, it's kind of the underlying narrative, is this idea that like the actual metaphor, as we said, it's clearly D&D is what's going on here. There is mentioned at times in the narrative is the metaphor that like the gods made the world of Goblin Slayer, and they like by random chance they rolled the dice to create what it's being made here, which is clearly talking about we the players in like the real world are the things going on here, and like capriciously we just let Last of Us 2 style, we just want we're just having all these meaningless characters die, but really we're the monsters for making this world where these innocent fake people suffer. But Goblin Slayer himself represents like defying that kind of like weird like godlike control that like the human players of D&D have over their avatars, because in this world they're like real characters with agency, and he's about like breaking this like destiny control thing.
Well, his sort of, I guess his theory would be nothing left to chance. It's like be extremely prepared, be extremely ahead of yourself. His thing is he lets no one roll the dice, as it says on the title card. So and that includes himself, I guess. Like, he's not rolling dice. He's fucking... Yeah.
He's like cautious hero. Right. He doesn't want it to be like a random chance. Oh, I've got 50% odds? That's good. No, that's shit odds. Right. You want 99% victory chance at least. Right. And the fact that he kind of rolls the dice a little bit too much in this movie is one of my issues with it.
Yeah, but, I mean, like... From what you described, because like the idea that the world is all based on D&D, like I've heard that brought up many times. That fact does absolutely nothing for me, because there's fuckloads of anime that are based on D&D that use its mechanics, that try to be realistic about them, going all the way back to like Record of Lodoss War.
Record of Lodoss War is the most famous one. This is the most direct though. Like honestly, the biggest thing that people go to is spell charges. Spell charges per day is the big thing that D&D players like. That is a literal D&D mechanic that I know and I like, and the fact that that is a limitation that the characters deal with. They're very conservative about using their spells, and when you play D&D, players act the exact same way. So
it's just, I guess it's funny to me that like it gets brought up so much, because to me, like when it comes to both anime and video games, like it's almost all couched in tabletop RPG. Like tons of anime are based on Call of Cthulhu games that people have played. There's a show called Chaos Dragon that's based on a tabletop RPG that the writer literally made up, and then they played a session of it and then wrote a show based on it. Like it's just like that type of, like, to me, D&D is like the core of all nerd fantasy culture besides Tolkien. It's like, just take Tolkien, applies rules to it, and then make it so you can tell your own version.
And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure D&D is largely based on Tolkien's work as well. Right, so maybe you could even say Tolkien, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, like they just took it and then made it a playable, hey, you want to play your own Lord of the Rings instead of obsessing over the Lord of the Rings? Here you go.
I think when people are saying that I like it because it's D&D, that's kind of not that useful. I think what they really mean is I like the efficiency, the tactics,
and that's what this movie's missing. It's like it has explanations for why things happen. They're not interesting.
That is the biggest thing. Like the whole time that we're watching, okay, again, we've summarized the plot. You now know what happens. Yeah. They fight, they save a girl who is a victim of the goblins. They win at the end, they kill them all. Congratulations, good job. It's the whole time I was asking, like, okay, let me just get into my biggest concern and my biggest question mark about the whole movie. So their initial mission, they raid the first nest of goblins that that initial party was trying to weed out near a village that was doing raids and stuff. And they do all the things that viewers will know. Like they look for, is there a shaman sign? No, there isn't. Oh, okay, that means there's no shaman here. So these are just going to be low-level goblins. We clear them out, and inside they find like the girl who really, I guess not by chance, is alive and is on some sort of weird like tablet and has a weird mysterious brand on her neck that we don't know what this means, and we sure hope we'll get answers. Spoilers, we do eventually. But the question is, okay, why is she alive? Like why was everybody else killed and she was given special treatment? Like who is the enemy that did this to her? If it's not a shaman, they're clearly building to something. What does this all mean? And I like, what are they going to do about it? How are they going to resolve this situation? And so the weird thing was, They do that initial raid. They save the girl. Okay, she has been kept and locked up by goblins, and we know that she was raped many times. This is explicitly clear in what happened. They rip off her clothes as soon as they get her. They've already killed all her friends. She is kept alive, but is clearly bruised and beaten. So she is all kinds of traumatized. And if you remember from episode 1 of Goblin Slayer, we see, many of them die in that initial raiding party, but one girl, the monk girl, is just raped a lot over the course of maybe half a day or so, but is then saved by Goblin Slayer and is carted out, and it's explicitly stated by the god narrator that, like, some adventurers just try it once and then, like, they never try it again. So it's clearly implied that, like, she's all done. This trauma is never getting washed away. Right. To be fair, there are characters like the Sword Maiden, who is, like, a former victim of goblins, who get over it, but the narrator says that this person never got... Clearly... And this,
what you're trying to say is it's very traumatic to get raped by goblins.
It's very traumatic, and what matters is literally the next day there is a mission to go raid. And I know, Vic, you had some thoughts about this, but I'll finish the point that the next day they do a mission to go and weed out, like, the big cache of goblins in, like, the fortress nearby, not just the little nest. Using the information they acquired from their initial raid, and this girl, like, asks to join and is willing to do so, and Goblin Slayer says, sure, let's do it, not a problem. And the initial thought is like, okay, first of all, how is she physically recovered in order to be able to do this after we don't even know how long she was being held by them? She was cared for relatively well compared to other just, like, sex slaves or whatever. So, okay, that, and the priestess can heal, so that's not a big deal. But then the other thing is, mentally, and this is the big question, mentally, is she really prepared? This is a person who you have not vetted as a member of your team. We know she already failed in a raid against the goblins, and now, and we see explicitly during the raid multiple times she has emotional breakdowns and jeopardizes not only the plan but their very lives by doing this.
And it seems to be the implication throughout the movie is it's just like Goblin Slayer was prepared for that, I guess.
Prepared enough.
Prepared enough for
but
that.
But why I mean, maybe we'll disagree about this, but this is the most annoying thing, is that Goblin Slayer is willing to tolerate certain amounts of risk when he does an operation, always. You always do. But this particular element seems like it is setting aside his usual character traits because they want to include the new sexy sword lightning magic girl, because it's a movie and we need a new character. And it's true, she does have usage at the end, but it is my contention that just as much could easily have been done by many other means, and it wasn't necessary to risk the lives of your team, as happens multiple times. And it's like, that's the strength of what people like about Goblin Slayer, and they're wearing away at that for more spectacle. And there are just smarter ways to write a story like that don't, like, risk the very lives and go against some character traits that are, again, the main thing people like about Goblin Slayer. Vic, what do you think?
Now I'm on the, like, my main thing with this is just like, it's not good. Like, this is very clearly, it's not a good movie, you know?
No, it's not.
It's not good from your perspective as functionally within this universe. Like, it's not a good representation of the characters and their tactics and all that. It
mostly
doesn't have any fucking point whatsoever. Like, it's
just one little story.
It's like one long episode in a arc that does not resolve the arc in any way.
Yeah.
Like, the only points that I saw in this movie that are sort of, and obviously these are things that are covered in the manga as well, but, like, the main, like, sort of underlying thing that matters in any way is that the goblins are evolving. They're learning new things.
That's the crucial thing, yes.
But and I will say there's one moment in this movie that I legitimately liked because early on, Elf Girl gets shot in the leg with an arrow. The arrowhead lodges in her leg because Demon Slayer, well, first it was that she shoots a goblin with a loose arrow. He had loosened the arrowhead so it would stay with the goblin so they could follow the trail of blood to where it was going.
Specifically, it was poisoned. And this was a cool detail. They poisoned the arrowhead specifically with a particular poison that should, when this goblin gets back to its nest, spread and hopefully kill lots of them. That did not happen. So that was kind of totally innocuous, but it did set up that the goblins would copy the tactic.
Yeah, so the goblins copy the tactic. They shoot an arrow into Elf Girl's leg. The arrowhead gets stuck. We're watching the scene right now where they have to remove it. This is one of the lamest scenes in the movie because they don't show him removing the arrowhead.
We cut away.
All this set up for, like, a gruesome scene. She bites down and then nothing. It's like, okay, well, like you're gonna show all this violence and rape, but not like cutting a fucking. That's like the coolest sounding idea of the fucking.
They cut away from the rape too, though.
Another thing is that the goblins learning their tactics does not pay off in this movie.
Well, that's what's so good about it. That's what I was gonna say. The only moment I like in the movie is when the goblins are firing their arrows in the castle, and all of the arrowheads are falling off because they have foolishly thought that this is just like a one size fits all tactic. Right? And it fucks them over. So that was the one thing I was like, oh, that's funny. That like the goblins are evolving, but they're so dumb they don't really understand the evolution they're trying to do.
They're evolving, but at a very low level. Yeah. So, but we'll touch back on this before. But like the biggest thing of Goblin Slayer as a character that I believe he had talked about a few times in the manga is like his number one fear in the world. Right, all he cares about is goblins. That's his only fear. That's all he focuses on. His number one fear is like the rise of the Goblin King. Because if you watch the end of the manga or of the anime, or have read later in the manga, during the raid on the farmhouse where the Goblin Slayer lives, it's led by a goblin lord. And a lord, I mean, in the goblin rankings, that's like the low form of what would evolve into be a goblin king, with the idea being a goblin king, like a lord, inspires the goblins, it makes them evolve more and faster and organizes them, which is the biggest danger. And that would be like a true threat
which
to
is also
everyone.
The case in Log Horizon. That is what happens, is that a goblin king emerges, and then the goblins like multiply dramatically and start raiding every village.
So there you go. It's totally a fair concern. And we should say that one of the things happening here is that the Goblin Paladin, which, by the way, gotta say, everyone knows when you play D&D, paladins are specifically lawful good. If you're thinking of the evil version of a paladin, that is called a blackguard. So this is actually a paladin blackguard that worships the green moon goddess, or whatever the fuck it was, of wisdom. So point deduction for that, for not getting it right. Maybe the translators got it wrong. I don't know. Maybe if I listen carefully, I could hear Burakugado or something.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, there's nothing wrong. They've got priests, right? There's goblin priests that worship some goblin god. So having like a knight that is, I mean, that's what a paladin is. They're like a priest knight or whatever. Having a blackguard version of that isn't the craziest thing in the world. But the point of the character, like, okay, he's a strong foe that Goblin Slayer kills like everybody else. So that doesn't really matter. But what matters was that there was attempted to be a coronation ceremony for the Goblin Blackguard to become clearly the Goblin King, that being the titular Goblin's crown, I would assume. That doesn't happen because they had previously killed the priest in a fit of autistic PTSD rage. The victim girl had killed the priest. And that makes me wonder, is this some sort of like in-universe, like actual like class up, like you would in a video game, where the Lord will become the priest if like these video game mechanics are met, and then, oh no, the Lord bonus that all the goblins get will go from a +1 bonus to a +5 bonus, and oh no, now they'll all be, way stronger in all these ways. I don't know if that's like just a political implication or if it's like an actual tactic implication, because that stuff does exist in this world. So I'm not really sure. But like the fear of the Goblin King is the biggest like red scary thing in the universe. And that's kind of what this movie is about at its core. And so I guess we'll just talk about quickly. The other like main thing going on was the question of why was the girl kept alive? That I was like, they better have an answer for this or I'm going to be annoyed. And at the end, in the little post resolution scene where Goblin Slayer is just talking to the priestess, they do say like, I too was asking why this girl must be kept alive, which is very satisfying for those of us who like the logical stuff in the series. Okay, she had a brand on her neck. They'd done a bunch of flashbacks to it. What did it all mean? Why was she alive? And it was for a purpose. It was that they had identified correctly that this girl has lightning magic. That is like her special thing of her family. And they're going to utilize her lightning magic to infuse weapons, to make like aluminum advanced weapons like her sword.
If they had, I don't know if they did specify this and I missed it, but like, was there any point in the movie where they specifically say this sword was forged by lightning?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
They did. Yes,
like
they do.
Right.
Well, they said specifically it's forged of aluminum with a red stone core. And I'm pretty sure the idea was it was forged with lightning. Yeah. That's clearly the implication. And that's a fine explanation. But again, I ask you, how does that revelation make the story more interesting? It doesn't. No. It simply is an answer to a question that it raised, and we just go,
well, that's okay. The whole
that's fine.
Kind of the whole movie is constantly like it's almost a mystery in a way, in that like you just learn little bits and pieces about it until the end, and then it's all wrapped up, and you understand why this all happened.
Yeah.
But at no point do you care about the fact that it's happening. Like, this girl is a character you can't really take that seriously because, like, I mean, you get her backstory. It's a traditional Goblin Slayer backstory. Everybody died.
There was nothing to make us like her. I don't know.
I mean, well, it's just that she has no, like you said, like, all these bad things happen to her. The next day, she gets up, cuts her hair off, and is, like, ready to go. Yeah. Right? And then we get there and we realize that she is traumatized. She does have PTSD. It's manifesting as anger. But Goblin Slayer fully anticipated this. He says so.
He accounted for her.
Murders a priest, and he said, okay, I knew this would happen. Like,
but why?
We knew that she was going to be... He just seemed to think that having her around would be more of a benefit than a detriment because she could use the lightning power to cause the avalanche in the end.
Presumably, yes.
Yeah.
But, like... I don't know. Like, was it really the best idea? Look, like,
in the meta sense, we know she had to be there because they wanted the new character there. So that had to happen. The question is, how do you get there? You could do a time lapse, a week past, a month. It's literally the next day. Yeah. How many days, how many weeks, how many months had she been in that dungeon being, like, abused, raped, God knows what else? Yeah. We have no idea. And, like, in more than one.
You know, it's just like she gets revenge on some goblins. And she gets her sword back, and I guess that's that. Her arc is done.
It's done.
Did we learn anything? Did we learn anything?
She got over her trauma over the course of, like, fighting.
Did she do, like,
kind of?
Yeah.
She had friends.
Is that how that works? Is I guess what I'm asking.
She was given comfort by other people.
We've seen other characters. I already mentioned that the Sword Maiden is a character who is, like, a recovered, like, that's her whole thing. She's one of the legendary warriors. It's just like who defeated the Demon King.
It just seems like they all I remember seeing was a bunch of, like, faux Yuri scenes where, you know, she hangs out with the blonde girl and she's like, hey, you're okay. Like, I will say something I like about Goblin Slayer's character, and it comes to in this movie, is that his mentality, being as utilitarian as he is, I feel like something he gets annoyed with is people sort of feeling guilty. He's just like, get over that. Like, get over that and get back in the action. Like, characters will fuck up and he'll be like, or, like, there's a part where the elf girl, like, shoots she's trying to shoot at the Goblin Lord, and a goblin jumps in front of it. And she's like, I messed up. And he's like, one less goblin. You know, like, immediately just, like, think about it positively and keep fighting, because if you get lost in the negativity, then you're going to get distracted and you're going to get killed, you know?
Indeed.
So, like, I really like that aspect of his character, that he's so positive all the time in his interactions with people.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
In spite of being, like, the ultimate tank, which is why everybody loves him, because they all look at him like, oh, like, he's a hard ass, but, like, only exclusively for a reason, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, it's not that I don't believe that, like, this character hanging out with this party could have been recovered from her trauma or whatever. Like I said, it's not that the movie doesn't make sense. It's just bad.
I, of course, want nothing more than anybody who's victimized. Do I need a virtue signal for these fake characters?
No, absolutely
I want her to feel good and be happy and healthy as soon as possible. But, like, it's just that we've explicitly seen the massive mental trauma that victims of this suffer. And to play it down because it's a movie, and we need that character, it explicitly diminishes the damage that goblins do, which is exactly the opposite of what the point of the series entirely is. So that's just frustrating for, like, fans who know this shit.
This whole movie to me felt like, all right, we have 60 minutes. Like, what do we do in 60 minutes, you know?
If perhaps the first 25 minutes weren't dedicated to backstory that no one needs. Because when you put that in there, it's like the conceit is that someone who's never seen Goblin Slayer can watch the movie,
this,
which anime creators talk about that shit all the time with anime movies. They're like, oh, we want it so anyone could just jump in. It's like, who the fuck is watching this movie besides us because we're doing this? Is jumping in and wants to watch 25 minutes of recap. Like,
if I was gonna watch this coming out of the blue, you know, I'd watch episode 1 of Goblin Slayer. But I mean, I'm sure someone, like, I don't know,
the movie on its own is not good enough to be like, oh, if you watch this, you'll get it.
That's the other thing. Because this is a movie, it does stand out more that the visuals, they're just exactly the same as the show. So no better. There's been no uptick in quality. It's just like a longer episode.
This is the production quality.
And I have higher expectations, and because of that, and it doesn't meet them, it's just a little bit more annoying. So
I mean, I think that I haven't read the Goblin Slayer manga. My contentions with Goblin Slayer as an anime series have nothing to do with the plot or any of the conceits. It looks like shit. Goblin Slayer looks and is paced fucking terribly, and like just the scenes just linger. Like there's just so many shots. Like there's one shot towards the beginning where she uses her big electricity spell, and all these goblins get like magnetized into the air and they're floating around.
Yeah,
and it's like it's a cool effect, but they just leave it on screen too long. Like, oh, we spent too much effort making this, we got to leave it on screen for an extra couple seconds, and it's like it already has diminished the entertainment value of this moment. Like
that's
it's just,
true.
There's no punch to this show. Everything is always just like stuff happening in order. And event, flat camera angles, shot, reverse shot, no like dynamic visuals, no, there's like, it bounces between CG and like these ugly blood spurts that are just like, obviously, you know, paint bucket tool. Yeah. Like, there's just no moment where it felt like they went all out on this moment. Where it was like, oh, that was the cool scene. That was the badass scene.
There are some pretty nice, like, close-ups of Goblin Slayer's helmet. That's, like, the one shot that they... And it's like that looks nice, the glowing
shot
eye.
With the girls in the bath was highly detailed.
That's true.
The fights at the end of the movie are fucking awful. Like, they're dizzying.
Terrible.
You can't tell what the fuck's going
Oh,
on.
and there are scenes where we visibly see our characters fleeing from goblins. They then halt. We can see no goblins on screen. This happens
minutes on end.
Twice in a row during the same chase sequence at the end.
Scenes of all the characters stopping, standing around, casually having a conversation, and literally in the previous shot, there were like an army of goblins
see them
directly behind them, running after them. Like as they're going down the whole climax of the movie is them running down this snowy slope.
Yeah.
As the goblins chase them, and there's like a part where they're literally like fighting them off, knocking them back. The Goblin Lord is right behind Goblin Slayer, fighting them off, and then all of a sudden they all stop.
And they have a conversation. Goblins are nowhere to be seen.
Right. And then it cuts to the goblins are all
they're like
50 yards
100
away.
feet away.
Like, what the fuck? Where were they? Were right there. Like.
And you know, just on like I think they do that a lot. On the battlements, there's the scene of like they're running, the girl's having another PTSD flashback, and they're like swatting them away. There's one on all sides, and there is a clip of them like killing a couple of them, but then they're just like literally all goblins are gone, and there aren't even that many corpses when we could see that there were more goblins before. It's just this like they're just not putting that much detail or attention into
two fights
specifics
between Goblin Slayer and the paladin, and both of them are shot back and forth of Goblin Slayer going and then Demon going
pretty sad,
and then it comes back.
And how about that one amazing shot we saw where we cut to a CG close up of the paladin doing a weird like whoosh, 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 whoosh,
oh yeah,
movement.
what the fuck was that?
And we were all like, we just wish that wasn't in this movie.
It was supposed to be like the classic after image of your hands moving, like Dagger of Kamui
like
or whatever.
Technique,
like,
you know,
but it wasn't.
He
He just
does it to be like, oh, I'm cool, and you're like, that looked terrible.
He wasn't even really implied to be that good of a fighter at any point. He just was bigger, had a big sword.
Well, there is no introduction to or characterization of this guy. Like, we get more of the stupid priest that she ends up killing. Like, the goblin, the big guy, is just like, there's a scene where the big guy shows up and they're like, oh shit, they're about to crown that guy Goblin King. We better kill him.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you have no emotional connection to that Goblin Lord or whatever. Like, there was no setup in the beginning of the movie, like, ooh, rumors have it that there's like a ritual that they're gonna establish a new Goblin King.
There's, I mean, the fact that the girl was like on that tablet and something mysterious is happening to her is like, okay, there's a plan at work here. And the fact that they copied that like loose arrowhead thing, that's like, okay, there is a goblin intelligence working here that, again, isn't even that smart, but is doing something. And again, it's that, it's weird because, like, for anime fans, you like things to be big, bold, in your face, attack name. But they're like, ooh, there are implications that evolution is beginning in the goblin hordes. Yeah. Wow, what a terror, what a nightmare for all of us. And it is, but they're just not articulating it or, like, displaying it to us, the viewers, very well. So, I don't know. And, you know, again, the fact that we see the PTSD of the girl, she seems to have clearly been raped or recognized the priest when they... Okay, first of all, let's just address the way they do the raid is, okay, so victim girl, after having been just rescued from this nightmarish hell one day ago, it's the next day. You know what they do for their brilliant plan? They dress up the girls as captured slaves to be offered up to the goblin hordes, including this girl who was the last day, yesterday, less than 24 hours ago. They dress her up like this. It's okay. She had her hair cut off thing. She's over it. Emotionally, she's past that. Except she's not. She has PTSD right now. They put him in a cage and they carry them. And okay, the other guys are looking pretty good because they dress themselves up in like Green Moon priest garb or whatever. And Goblin Slayer paints his armor black and his cool marks. That all looks pretty sick. And then they bring them in. On the way in, the goblins like are grabbing and fucking with the girls in the cage. Oh, they're just slaves to be offered up to the god, right? And then, of course, the cage bursts open. PTSD is going out the fucking ass for the victim girl, and she chokes and beats to death with her bare hands the priest that is like implied to be either her rapist or like facilitated the rape or something. Yeah. And like the connection there, the personal dynamic is all on that priest goblin, and there's none of that on like the actual big bad of the blackguard.
It kind of feels emotionally resolved right at the start because she kills the demon.
Absolutely.
And then she's just kind of you know, alternating between pissed off and afraid as they go through the mission.
Yeah,
but like, again, there's no real arc for her because, like, I mean, the implication, like you said, is I guess she gets over the PTSD, but like, I don't know, she already was.
Like, there are two times she gets over it in the movie, and I don't believe either of them.
No, neither one.
Well, I think at the beginning it's like repressed, you know, like she hasn't processed what happened, you know, because it's so much. I mean, and then and then she's flashing back to it, and it's like it's coming out. And
with
she's
all
like
of
losing
this,
her mind.
I respect the warrior spirit of the girl who wants to get revenge. I mean, I like to think if I was her, I would do the same thing because it's badass and I like it. It's just that when I have watched Goblin Slayer and I watch his logical mind at work, and that is the main appeal of the series, and then. I'm like, whoa, this seems like I was saying it. This seems like a bad idea. Is this really, you want to go send her to fight her victim? And then she literally does have multiple breakdowns during the mission. I'm like, who could have predicted that this would happen? It's not what Goblin Slayer's supposed to be, and it's annoying for those of us who know and care.
Maybe he wanted to like let her get her revenge to inspire her.
Do you think he thinks that way?
No.
Look, that would be nice, but no, he wasn't thinking that way. And again,
he was thinking at some point there will be a lightning bolt spell that causes an avalanche that kills all these goblins.
And if we haven't touched on that enough already, like clearly at the end he says like, okay, the avalanche was the plan. We go in, we do a raid, we then leave, we have them all follow us out, we then trigger an avalanche. Clearly that was the plan, and the lightning was used to do it. So like, okay, girl was useful, but as I said at the beginning, I just think that there are multiple other ways to do it that doesn't involve like the actual rape victim.
I also don't really understand how it benefited Goblin Slayer to not tell anybody about this plan before they went in.
He gives an excuse for that, which is played for laughs, to be fair. He says, what if the enemy overheard us? And then they knew what the plan was. Where? Back at home base? When you were literally at, like, your house at the beginning?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous, but at least they have the self-awareness to make it a joke, because it's obviously stupid. And that, I mean, I give that a pass, because it was done as a joke.
I don't. Calling attention to something dumb doesn't make it less dumb. Ironic shitposting is still shitposting.
Yeah. It's, when you think of Goblin Slayer as the autistic weirdo that he is, that's true. But, and the only other thing was, and I actually do like this element, because Goblin Slayer does have, like, little kind of romantic or, like, he's not just a pure killing machine. He does have little bits of hope, specifically with the narrative of the girl trying to get her sword back, which is, like, her family's legacy or whatever. And so, like, the plan was, go in, lure the goblins out, avalanche, we have won. And that was the plan. But he modifies the plan when it becomes clear how important the sword is to her. So he specifically modifies the plan to lure out the blackguard to engage in a one-on-one duel so he can get the sword back, pierce through his shield, which he clearly planned, and then trigger the avalanche. And he almost dies as a result. And it's like, oh, I can appreciate a specific moment like that that's about modifying the plan to give, like, some person on your mission the little special kind of benefit that they need, because like he cares, he wants them to be whole, he knows what it's like to be a victim, and anything he could do to like undo that even a little bit, I'm sure he resonates with. So like that's the soul. You can feel the goodness from something like that. But like he could have done all that without bringing her to the mission and jeopardizing it at multiple places. So like that only goes so far. It's a push and pull between those two.
I feel like this movie script wise could have been modified to be like a solid 7 out of 10 Goblin Slayer, simple introduction to Goblin Slayer movie script. I think that the things that are wrong with it on the script level bring it down to like a 5 or a 6, and then the fact that it also sucks brings it down to like a 4 or like a. I would give this movie like a strong 3 to a light 4.
Mm-hmm.
Just nothing, like almost nothing in it did anything for me. You know, like it's competent. There's nothing egregiously wrong with it in terms of plot or anything or animation. It's just like nothing's impressive. Nothing about the plot, nothing about the animation, none of it grabs you. None of it makes me want to watch Goblin Slayer. You know, like for sure. Like you were saying, if they wanted to make this an introduction,
this is the worst
plan
I've ever seen in Goblin Slayer. This plan was the which
like,
is
it
so
should
it's the
be the
weakest
best
entry.
plan.
Yeah, because it's the movie and the
right,
intro.
and like you know, we think about the Konosuba movie that came out.
That was like the best Konosuba thing, basically. Yeah, yeah.
It was like all the good things, and then there's like a little bit of addition at the end just to make it more of like an epic movie, bro. But like that movie captured everything that was good about the show.
Ooh, the comedy, the joy, the happiness, the fact that I saw it in a movie theater with all my bros. That was a great fucking time. Even if I saw this in the exact same conditions, it would just been like, what the fuck?
You'd be so disappointed you spent like $20 on the ticket.
I sure would. I sure would.
I can't help but like with Konosuba, like the show is clearly a labor of love.
Yeah.
That had a lot of risks taken on it to do something unique. It paid off, and so they're like, yes, we're gonna keep making it great so we can keep this thing alive. With Goblin Slayer, I really feel like from the outset,
from the start,
the idea was this prints money.
Yep.
We can do whatever we want. Like, let's just make sure it's good
autistic D&D
enough,
nerds
you know?
that love the shit as cheap as possible. Let's just get it to them. So
I would say as cheap as possible. They clearly put some effort in. I mean,
within reason.
You know.
Within reason.
Because so when we were watching it, the most important thing in this movie is that he puts on black armor with a neat design so that they can sell a toy of that.
Yeah.
And that they have a new girl who has 2 distinct outfits.
Yep.
So they can sell that.
And you know what?
That seems like the motivation here.
I really liked her post hair cutting outfit.
Yeah,
like the black lace and that looked
like
great.
They put
like
effort
a
into those
countess or
character
something.
designs.
And again, I like the idea. I mean, because one of my favorite characters is the Sword Maiden, because I think the idea of like one of the victimized women who are like fucked over by goblins, like in the world of Goblin Slayer, where kind of the big thing is the goblin murder and rape thing, and rape is like the most tangible one, and obviously you survive that, so you could keep doing stuff potentially. Like having one of them being like a leading character is a really compelling thing and really empowering and positive. Like it's all about like not allowing bad things in the past to define you, which I just think is a great message for everyone all the time. Right. I love that. It's just that it's handled indelicately here, and so it doesn't do a great job of supporting that, I think. So nobody's more into that idea than me, but it's the execution.
What would you score this movie?
Well, I mean, I would say that I like being in the world of Goblin Slayer, but as I said, this is basically the worst iteration I've seen thus far. So it drags down the property a little bit as opposed to dragging it up with like a better arc. So like I could probably generously give it like a strong 5, like not quite a 6. I don't think.
I could probably be with it myself. Vic, do you have any thoughts about this movie you wanted to share before we're done with it?
Like I'd put it at like a 3 or a 4 because it's one of those where it's like. It's like worst case scenario with an anime movie where it's like it's worse than any other property.
Yeah.
If you show it to someone who's never seen it before, they're gonna think that the series is dumber than it is. You know.
Yeah.
Like it's failing on every single level to offer something positive to the series.
That thing where at the very end they answer a bunch of my questions, like that format works a little bit better in like a 24-minute anime.
Exactly.
And I'm just saying it just works worse when you drag the mystery out for an hour that isn't interesting. It's just answers to basic questions, and it just like for more of the movie I'm frustrated and annoyed, and I get answers that are just rudimentary and don't like tickle my fancy.
It's like, oh, at least there was an answer, because otherwise this would have been
then I just would have been more
mad.
But oh good, okay, now I don't need to be actively mad at the show.
And like the fact that they started off with a 25-minute recap means that their intention, their idea of this movie was that it is an advertisement for
which
you're
Goblin
right.
Slayer.
Incidentally,
right,
I mean, like we only watched some of the recap because we were like, well,
I've seen the show.
Sit through all this.
Yeah,
and like,
but it is a 25-minute recap.
We watched the very end of the recap where it shows like his last battle from the show.
Better than this.
It might have. It looked so shit. Like that recap
did not look
that
good.
recap would not have sold me on the show either.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I dropped the show in half.
So
an
It's
hour.
a rudimentarily made show.
If
It's
the
not
goal
amazing.
is to
And the
bring
manga
attention
looks
to the
great.
series,
I mean, the manga looks great, panel to panel. Absolutely love it. Love being in the world. But I mean, that's true of almost all
like
manga,
look
so.
at like just look. Go to Google image search. Type Goblin Slayer manga. look at just that page of the image results, and it will be better than
Like,
watching the anime.
In this, you get once every 20 minutes, you get like a really cool shot of Goblin Slayer with his glowy eye. In the manga, every other page, there's like a badass. I'm like, yeah, that's what I like to see. This is great and, you know, generally more logically constructed. And, so, and then there was just another thing that, like, with anime, inherently, because there's more work put into it, there's more, it feels more alive. Expectations are just higher in anime across the board, so it doesn't have to do as
it's
much.
More that there's
to
more
me.
ways to fuck up, you know.
That's true.
Like
That's true.
because with the manga, it's just like one guy's skill at drawing and his assistant's ability to keep up with him. You know, like with anime, it's like 70 people who all have to be equally good if you want a good product, and
That's certainly true.
that is not the case on this show. You know, like, and unfortunately, the director, I think, is the root of it. Like,
Probably.
because just the pacing sucks, like moment to moment, not like the overall pacing of the whole movie, which is, I mean, it's boring.
Even that's a complicated question.
It's a fucking boring movie, but like, but moment to moment, just like scenes drag out too long, characters stand around too much. There's just not enough thought put into how is this going to be framed? How will this look? You know, like it's just lots of just chest up characters staring at each other, you know, and
it sure is.
That's not what anime is about, dude.
And some scenes where characters are, like right now, we're seeing on screen, like, why did elf, lizard, and dwarf disappear? Remember I said, oh, they were doing something. They, like, one of them
could not figure
was
out what
carrying
they
the
were
prisoners.
doing.
One of them carried the prisoners. By the way, commonly in the fucking manga, and the anime too, the lizard man makes a golem who carries the prisoners out, because this happens all the time, so they didn't even need a single character to have left the party to create artificial tension, when, oh no, there's so many goblins chasing them right now,
I mean,
because they split up for no fucking reason.
We're watching right now, and it's not even, like, they're not currently saving the prisoners. Like, Goblin Slayer and the other two are running around fighting goblins. The other three were just, like, down in the castle trying to...
The elf and the dwarf were gone for no reason. They were doing nothing. Like, the lizard man specifically says at one point, oh, I will use my larger body and strength to carry out the prisoners, as I commonly do, because I'm the big, strong one. The others are with him because... no reason? Backup? I could see having one person with them.
I mean, it's definitely, like, another thing where, as we're watching this back on the screen... I'm just thinking about, like, how confused I was watching it the first time about what was going on at this part, and rewatching it again, still being kind of confused about how this all happened and the way it happened. You know?
It's not great. It's not great. Well, I think that sums it up, basically. We've covered the territory. I'd
Hopefully
still say...
this was cathartic if you sat through the Goblin Slayer movie and were like, what the fuck? That was boring.
If you're new, read the manga. It's the most efficient use of your time. It looks really good and is rewarding if you like the general appeal stuff that we were talking about at the beginning.
There's the
shot of
the
absolutely incredible.
I've ever seen.
Absolutely incredible. All right, we're done. We're done.
Yeah, all right. So the next thing we're going to watch is called fucking Kanojo.
Do you need to...
We like to
advertise the next thing, or are you going to put it out before this?
Insert audio clip of it here.
What do you mean put it out before this? Why did I put it out before this?
So you don't have to release everything in the order that you shot it.
Correct. That's fine. Who cares? All right, it'll be fine. Next time, so you'll see this on KHANTEHNT. There it is. See you soon, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Watch our channels in the description.
Oh, yeah. We've all got
Links
channels.
down there.
We do lots of other stuff. Watch my Ghost in the Shell video. Goodbye.